All right, welcome back to our channel here. And in this video, we're going to be doing some more modifications. And today we're going to be working on the Royal Alloy GT150. Now, as you saw in the intro there, I live in a pretty dark neighborhood. It's only 6:15, so it was maybe 6 o'clock when I was recording that little shot there, just holding my phone, putting around the neighborhood. This little headlight here, while it looks beautiful, really isn't throwing a lot of light. And I do a lot of riding, especially after I'm done working. If I'm gonna go hang out at the garage with my friends, if I'm gonna go run errands, because this is my sort of daily driver most of the time. And for a fair amount of the time here in Tennessee, it gets dark by 5:15. And this little headlight here just isn't quite cutting it for me, driving on these dark roads where there's not a lot of street lights. It just doesn't work. So I've decided we're gonna go with that mod scooter style. We're gonna go ahead and throw a front rack on here, the Prima Front Cargo Rack in chrome for the Royal Alloy. And alongside that, we're gonna mount up some lights. Now there's plenty of light options. We can go with the old school halogen or filament bulbs that look really retro. We can go with something super modern like LED bars or LED pods. Now I'm not a purist by any means, but I'm not putting an LED bar or cubed LED pods on my scooter. This thing looks too good as it is. I'm not gonna mess it up with that. Even Harbor Freight sells some round LEDs, but they're just a bunch of little diodes, and I don't think they look particularly nice. And I'm not gonna take a classy scooter and put some shit lights on it just because I wanna see better. Maybe that says more about me than it should, but I wanna do something nice. So I went online, I found myself the Prima Front Rack from ScooterWorks. Bless those guys up in Chicago, near my hometown in Milwaukee. They got that thing to me in 2 days. I ordered it Thursday afternoon, Saturday morning. The box was here from UPS, ready to get mounted up. I also needed to find some lights. Now there's a ton of headlight options and fog light options out there. I was looking for something in the 4-inch range, and I wanted to go LED because I didn't want to take too much power off of the scooter. And I found some really nice lights, so we'll show you those in a few moments. But I decided to go with a pair of 4.5-inch LED fog/driving lights with a white halo around them. And I'm going to do the 2 of those right here on the scooter so that when the nighttime comes, I can flip a switch and I can light that road up. I'm not going to worry about deer. I'm not going to worry about potholes or people on the side of the road anymore. I want to be able to see, and I don't mind being seen. So what we're going to do in this video here is get that front rack installed, and we're going to start figuring out how to assemble our fog driving lights and get them mocked up on the scooter. We still need to work out the wiring details, and we'll probably do that in part 2 of this particular video. In part 1 of this video here, we'll take that rack, we'll get it mounted up, and we'll start figuring out what we can do with our lights. I'll show you guys how I'm assembling them and talk a little bit about how I plan on wiring them in. Now, what we've got here is that Prima front rack shipped from ScooterWorks. This is gonna mount on the front of the scooter here. It does have a fold down area, so you can put a roll bag, a backpack, luggage, anything you want there. It sits with 2 rubber pads. We've got these 2 hooks that are gonna grab up top, and it has 2 additional hooks with a little turnbuckle that are gonna go on the sides to hold this in place. So let's go ahead and mock that up. To fit it, all we're gonna do is take it, hook our 2 little rubber hooks around the leg shield of our scooter, and then we're gonna rotate these pads in place. So coming in here, we can see these little foot pads, and they do rotate around, and we can get them lined up so that they're gonna match the body of the scooter pretty well. We can see up here, that's where those rubber-coated hooks are going to sit on the front of our leg shield. Now, I do admit they're a little bit dirty. Maybe I would have liked if ScooterWorks had shipped some cleaner ones, but I think that corrosion just comes from sitting on the shelves. Taking a look at that, that's a pretty nice looking little scooter rack there, and it folds down as we saw earlier so that we can put some big stuff on there. Folds up, sits out of the way. It does have this little nose there, but I think it looks pretty good. Additionally, we've got those turnbuckles I mentioned. They're going to hook here and come out to the side of the rack here. So I'm going to get those kind of mocked into place, and we'll come back to it. Now we can see right here, these fit on. They just have a wing nut, a lock washer, and a big washer. And then they come out here and they grab the side of the scooter. So you simply put it on, and then you're just going to turn that wing nut to bring things tight. Now we're going to do it together, so we don't just do one side first and scoot the whole rack over. We can still see it's blank here. Now this is a pretty big hole, and what we've got on the end of this guy is a pretty narrow threaded rod. So you have some wiggle room up and down. Sort of eyeballing where the cups fit to the center of our plastic horn cowl there. We can see they're pretty even. So we'll go ahead, once again, we'll just poke that threaded side through. And what I'm going to do is cheat it all the way through like this. And I'm going to start our washers on this end. This is the entirety of our hardware for either side. We've got our little turnbuckle hook, a lock washer, a regular washer, and a wing nut. So the lock washer here goes outside like that, and our wing nut goes on top. So that's the little sandwich that we have going as we install this hardware. Let's go ahead and get things started. As I mentioned, we sort of cheat it through here, so I have plenty of room to hold things. We set our two washers on, and then we're going to start our wing nut, and then we'll pull this out and make it fit. There's our wing nut started. Hard to do with just one hand. We're going to come out this way and just try to get our hook over the edge of our leg shield here. Might need to set you down to do this. Now we know that this wing nut is just to the back of the bolt, and this one's almost there. So we really don't have a ton of room to wiggle things around, but we can come over here and back this off just a hair. Sort of shift that over and see if we can't convince it to pop around our guard. There we go. Now that that's in place, we know that this guy's in place, we can come in and we're just going to tighten our wing nuts on either side until we get those lock washers to press flat. We'll also make sure that everything is sort of seated around as far as the top mounts go, and that'll let us get this tightened up. So there we go again. We're just going to kind of get this fit into place till it feels like everything is about where it fits good and tight. Looks like I think we're shifted a little bit to the left, so we're going to try to shift this a little bit to the right by just backing off our wing nut over here, giving our rack a little wiggle. This will be some fine tuning, but at least we're getting it into place. Once that's there, we just crank down on either one of these wing nuts, and that is going to really lock our cargo rack pretty well into place. And now, well, I don't love that. Now I've tightened up our wing nuts. I've gotten this about as centered as I can. And it looks pretty good. You know, at first glance here, I mean, overall I'm happy with the way it looks. It's got a nice rack. If we back up and we take a look, well, it's pretty sharp on the scooter, pretty vintagey. You know, no complaints about the overall appearance of it. As we come around, I mean, it looks good. I don't love that it blocks all our badges. If this rolls down, you can see them a little bit better, but yeah. It sort of blocks the badging on the scooter. The little hooks here sort of work. I mean, it's a nice look. What's important to me is that this is going to give me a place to mount my fog lights. So I'm going to get some driving lights, and we're going to change the look of the scooter. Now let's talk about how I feel about the Prima rack here. I think it looks really sharp. I like the way I could fold it down. I could put a fair amount of cargo on here. If I wanted to put a suitcase and pick my wife up from the airport, sure. But would I spend my $158 on this again, having looked at it and installed it and felt it? I might not. The fit and finish looks good from 5 feet away, but up close, this isn't a very positive attachment. We've just got these two little hooks here that are sort of hanging on and squeezing in. I have nothing holding the cargo rack down, and you hit bumps. You hit a bump, things in motion want to stay in motion. That means they go up. Well, they don't want to stop going up until something holds them down. And I have nothing holding this cargo rack down. Now, I fucked about with this for a little while off camera to make it look, you know, pretty good here so I could show it off to you. But I'd be afraid to lift up on it and see it pull up off of where it mounts right here. You know, it'd probably fall back into place, but I'm not totally thrilled with it. I might have sent that $158 to Capino or whoever it is overseas that makes some of the no drill or the drill and mount racks that would go on this and come up around the side. I may still do that yet because I don't know that this is going to be a permanent solution for me. I want to get some lights mounted because I do a lot of riding at night, and I'd like to have the lights at least while it's dark here in these winter getting into spring months. But overall, jury's out on whether I'd recommend this to you or not, and I'm going to tell you the truth, right? No one's sending me shit for free. I make scooter videos for like 70-some people of you, and I thoroughly appreciate each and every one of you because it's fun for me. I'd be doing this anyway. This gives me an excuse to do it and talk about it. So we've got this mounted up. We made some minor adjustments to the way it fits, and I think it looks pretty good. You know, looking down, it's not out of whack. Nothing looks like it's skewed or bent or anything. I just don't know that I love the way it fits and holds on. But with that said, I wanted to mount lights, so let's talk about the lights that we're going to mount. To mount lights up to this, we need a couple of things. We need a light, we need a housing, and we need something to mount it to the bars. I've done all that homework for you. These are the lights I purchased. It's a pair of them. So this is, I think, meant to replace the Batwing lights on a Harley Davidson. But we can see we've got kind of the fog lights in the middle here and a white halo around the side. It's a pretty thin light with a heat sink on the back here, and it comes pre-wired. So we've got our 3 wires coming off the back, a spade, which is for the halo, and a black and a red, which are for the main light there. It comes with a connector and a little pigtail on it. It's a pretty good looking light. It feels nice and solid. You know, everything looks pretty good about it. So it should Next up to talk about is our housing. Now, a lot of the housings are about 5 inches from front to back. I found these on Amazon, about 2.5 inches front to back. And it comes in a couple of pieces. The first piece being our chrome ring that goes around our light and holds it in place. The second being our actual housing here. This is the screw that pinches our chrome ring around it. And it also has a little wiring pigtail already in there. But when we take these apart and out of the plastic, we're left with a pretty sharp looking chrome housing. That's me behind the camera. So let's see what it looks like with the light installed. And there you go. With our light installed on the housing, we've got a pretty sharp looking little piece of kit. Let's see what that looks like on the scooter a little bit. Now, I've already got my mount on there. We'll talk about that in a moment. But there's our light up on the scooter. That's a pretty good looking light. And I've got this nice chrome silver mount that's intended to, you know, mount lights or something to your cafe racer motorcycle. Problem is, that's a 25 millimeter hole. That's a 19.1 millimeter bar. So we're going to have to come up with a solution to that. I've got some ideas I'll talk you through in a few moments. But this is what that assembled light looks like. And we'll have our wires coming out of the bottom. Now, when it comes to these mounts I mentioned, this is a 25 millimeter mount and a 19 millimeter bar, which means there's all that extra space there and no way to easily mount my fog light to the rack. Now, there are plenty of options that people have done for this sort of situation on scooters in the past. The first option, measure your shit and then buy your clamps. But if you're like me and you order it all at once because you want to make a video and do a project on it, you might not get to measure it. So ask on a Facebook group. Hopefully somebody out there can measure something and tell you, hey, the bars on this are 19 millimeters thick. I wasn't so fortunate. I asked, but nobody had one to measure, or nobody could measure it at the time. So I bought these because I really liked the way this chrome mount looked. But it's 25 millimeters. Guys will have wrapped rubber around things. They'll take a sliver of PVC pipe and clamp on that. Plenty of different ways that we can do this. But in my case, I said I have a 3D printer. Why don't I just fix this with a 3D printed part? So I made sure this was a 25 millimeter ring. I made sure this was a 19, maybe a 19.1 millimeter bar. And I just 3D printed myself 2 little halves, and I'll pop up a 3D model of this on the screen for you. 2 little halves of 3D printed plastic that latch right in on my bar mount. They look pretty good. I could do them in silver or something, but white was loaded and I'm prototyping, so there we go. One will fit in there. The other one will fit in on the other side. So we'll go to the bench and look at those up close in a moment. Hopefully in your case, if you have a question, somebody can give you the answer. I try to be that guy, hence the reason I make videos on the Royal Alloy, the Rough House over here, really any of the scooters I work on. We should all be able to work on our own stuff, and maybe my videos help you do that. So let's take a look at how these are going to go, and we're going to mock up one of our lights on the cargo rack, and that'll wrap it up for today's video. So here you go. My two little inserts are in place, and that's just going to get sandwiched like so. And when we crank it down with the screws, that should make a nice tight fit onto the bars of the scooter. And they fit in. And I put these edges on both sides so it can't slide out. So that was a choice of mine to just try to help capture the insert in there. So all we have to do is come over here, unscrew our big bolt. We're going to take just this piece, and we're going to feed all of the wires through the hole. And now all we have to do is tighten this nut down, and we'll have our mount in place. Now the nut does interfere on this a little bit. I'm going to go grab a file, I think, and just try to file down the back side of this a hair. But we'll come back once I've got it in, and we'll mount this up on the scooter. So with that, we've at least made some progress. We've got our front rack on. We can come over here and we can look at how these lights are going to get mounted. So we want to put them up top. We want to put them close together, but up, down. I could push them far forward. This is a little too bug-eyed for me. But we have some options as to where these lights can go, and they're going to point probably down and out a little bit. Things to think about. Feels a little awkward. We'll be back with more scooter content. We've still got the roughhouse to get running. We've got lights to put on this. We've got the Buddy 50 to get running. All sorts of fun stuff happening here on the channel. Just need to make sure we have the time to do it. But you guys watching the videos, liking the videos, sharing them, always cool. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.